everyone, and welcome to this episode of Behind the Wrestler. My guest at this time is none other than the divine savior himself, James Shaw.
Bless you all.
Thank you very much for taking the time out and giving us insight of your story.
No problem at all, man. It's a pleasure. I always enjoy talking to you, so this is an excuse to have a chat with you.
Yeah, basically. So the first question is, who, when, and where inspired you to become a professional wrestler, and how did you go about it?
Yeah, so I believe it or not, when I was a youngster, I actually didn't watch wrestling. I actually thought it was quite silly.
Right.
So I remember being at school and everyone talking about The Rock and Stone Cold and Triple H, and I I thought it was a bit dumb, to be honest. And everyone would just go on and on and on about it because it was peak Attitude Era. You know, you're just a 10-year-old, and I just never joined in on those convos and stuff. I was a bit of an outcast, to be honest.
Right.
But then as I got into high school, it switched where everyone stopped liking wrestling, and then I found it on Sky, and I would watch it as a joke. Like, I would watch the last, like, maybe couple of 10 minutes or whatever and be like, oh, this is silly.
Yeah.
And watch it, but then be like, oh, that's pretty funny. And then, like, eventually, like, my mom was like, she's pretty cool, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where, like, I was always tuning in for the last segment of Raw. I found I was always just flicking over and on a Friday night and watching the last segment. And around that time, that was Batista and Triple H feuding, building up to WrestleMania.
Oh, yep.
And yeah, so around that time, I was quite interested. I was like, oh, I wonder who's going to win this. Like, you know, no interest of actually watching the pay-per-view and stuff. So I remember the weekend WrestleMania happened. I all week I was like, I wonder who won that match.
Yeah.
So like it was just something that was on the back of my mind. So I was like, I should tune in just at the end to find out who won. And lo and behold, Batista had won the title and stuff. So as that goes on, I'm like, oh, I might watch a full episode next week. Right. So next week I watch a full episode, and then the week after that I'm watching a full episode, and all of a sudden I'm hooked. And I remember they were building up to Backlash, that first pay-per-view, and I remember like almost awkwardly coming out to my dad going, oh, I've been watching this wrestling thing. And Dad was like, oh, I used to watch that when I was young. And my sister thought it was a joke, and my mum thought it was a joke and stuff. And I remember there was that pay-per-view on, I think it was Backlash, a pay-per-view on. And I'd been watching the whole build-up to stuff, and I was quite interested in it. And I awkwardly asked Dad, I was like, do you think we could book this pay-per-view? And he was like, absolutely not. We're not touching that.
Yeah.
And then a month later, when the Judgment Day had happened, I was filtered into it. Dad was watching with me.
Yeah.
And it was like Christmas, man. I was like, oh, because I'd never experienced sort of pay-per-views. Like,
right.
At this point, I'm fully into wrestling. Dad's like, yeah, we'll book the pay-per-view. So we watched the pay-per-view. I remember it was Cena and JBL and I Quit match.
Yeah.
And man, it was just like, it was amazing. It felt like Christmas. So from that point, I was just hooked non-stop. Probably for a good year, I watched wrestling. At that same time, I was doing karate. And I remember that impacting my karate because I wanted the karate. I'd do the tournaments and stuff, but I wanted it to be more showboaty like the wrestling.
Right.
I remember asking my sensei, I was like, do you think we could come out the entrance music? And I was met with an absolute bloody slap to the back of the head on that. So as that kind of went on, I kind of found myself fading off towards the karate more and more towards the wrestling. I was like, man, this looks great.
Right.
This looks cool. And then eventually I stopped the karate. I wasn't enjoying it as much as I used to. But then I had this lull period where I was like, right, I'm gonna find a way to become a pro wrestler.
Right.
So for a good, I'd say 4 or 5 months, I was just getting into the gym. I was just kind of working because I used to be very skinny. I was just kind of working out at the gym and stuff, and that was like, I remember that was just on my mind. I was like, right, I'm just gonna find a way to become a wrestler in New Zealand.
Right.
And in my mind, I was just completely unaware of all the promotions in New Zealand. I had no idea there was wrestling in New Zealand. I remember one day I was just on Google and I was like, I should look up New Zealand professional wrestling and see if anything pops up. And then lo and behold, that's where Impact Pro Wrestling came up on the website. And I remember it was a Sunday, and I just missed the day. They just had a show the day before,
Oh,
and I was like, oh man. And I remember looking at the roster page and stuff. I was like, wow, this looks interesting.
yeah.
So I remember I made note of the next date. It was like a month away. It was July,
Yeah.
I think. And I told Dad, I was like, look, I found wrestling in New Zealand.
Hmm.
It might not be like the WWE, but I think we should go along and just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And a month passes, him and I go, and I remember showing up, and the main event was Alfred Valentine and Kingy
Yeah.
in a ladder match. And this was 2006, July 2006.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, a long time ago,
Yeah.
almost 15 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
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 So I remember watching it, and I was like, I want to do this. I need to find a way into this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had this tryout. I remember they had this section on the old episode. It was like on the old website, if you wanted to try out, send your resume type.
Yeah.
So if anyone had a resume in New
Yeah.
Zealand at the time with
Yeah.
wrestling. So yeah, I clicked it. I was like, look, I've done karate. I'm a karate New Zealand champ. You know, I really want to give this a go, and I got nothing back. Like,
Right.
and I sent about 3 emails,
Mhm.
and then eventually it came to about October, and then because I sent that email, I got an email saying they're doing tryouts, and I was just like, this is it. This is my chance, man.
Right.
So I go along to the tryouts, and in the tryout I threw up because I had a massive breakfast. So nervous. I threw up in the tryout, and but I didn't give up. That was the key. I was like, nah, threw up, went out, and then joined back in.
Yeah.
And then I left after that, going, I stuffed up. I completely stuffed up that. And I was like, I'll have to try next year. I was like, look, I'll just get my fitness up. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a call from the Machine, aka Chuck Warner,
Yeah.
inviting me to come train, and the rest was history, pretty much. As for
Nice.
people I watched on television, I'd say Shawn Michaels was a massive influence, man. I remember watching him, and I was like, there's something different about this guy, because he wasn't a massive guy, but it's almost like you can relate to him. You're like, and because there's so many tall guys in the WWE,
Yeah.
he looks small, and you're like, oh, he must be about my height.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you come to find out he's like 6'2".
Yeah. It's like
"Oh, great."
6'2".
We're the giant there.
Yeah. And walking into your first training session, and like preparing yourself and following up, and then going back, and getting more and more training under your belt. How long was it before they gave you an opportunity to have a debut match and be on shows?
Yeah. So that so what I loved about old trainings back then was I started in January, and it wasn't until October where I got my first match at an Armageddon.
Right.
But what was great about those trainings was, I mean, it could be great. It just depends how you look at it. For the first 2 months, we weren't allowed in the ring. We were only on the mats, just doing the basics and stuff. And I remember looking across, because the ring was set up across the room, and I was like, I just want to get in there, man.
Yeah.
And you'd have a little play in show days, because the other thing too, show days you'd come help out, your cameraman or whatever. Everyone's been there.
Yeah.
And I remember, I'd just look at the ring, and I was like, I just want to play in there and stuff. So yeah, for a good 2 months we went in that ring, and then after that they got us in the ring, they got us familiar. And our class was quite big, which our class had some big names too. It had Liam Fury, he'd started the exact same day as me.
Oh, nice.
I had Kurt Chaos, he'd started the same day as me. Brian St. James, who was destined to be one of the greatest wrestlers New Zealand ever seen, unfortunately he had a hip injury. We also had Flagboy, which was another great character wrestler, and we had this fella Chad Chambers, who pretty much is a tech wizard. He drifted off from the wrestling but took over the tech side, and he was a wizard, man, at that technical computers and stuff. I mean, especially when you're around a bunch of dummy wrestlers that barely know how to operate iTunes. It's like, how do I get this song from this CD onto there? Yeah. He'd suss it with. So and then so from January to October, just trained, and then I remember leading up to Armageddon, they asked who wants a match here, and we were all just like, yes. So all of us got an individual singles match, and we also got to compete in a battle royal.
Nice.
And my singles match was against handsome Danny Jacobs, and I think I probably was a little not ready for the ring, just personally me. So I went in there and I was very nervous. And I remember him just coming up to me and he's going, "What can you do?" And I go, "An enziguri," and that was about all we talked about.
I can do this.
I'm just waiting for this call for this
Yeah.
enziguri, and I still distinctly remember in the match for the turnaround, he grabbed my foot and he goes, "Enziguri," and I just nailed this picture perfect enziguri. But also in the match, I ballsed up the spine buster and
Yeah.
like
Nice.
you're just in there hoping that this guy's leading you. Thankfully, he just led me, got me through a match. Yeah, and then after that, I trained for a little bit more. And then it was around March where I started getting on proper shows. So another 5 months, I'd say. But a lot of those guys did really well. Where after Armageddon, they were on cards quite regularly. So I found myself the last guy on of that list to get on the card. So everyone, like guys like Liam and Gus, Brian St. James and Kurt Chaos, they all started getting booked quite regularly.
Right.
So it lit a fire in me. I was like, I've got to get on this card. I've got to get, seeing all these guys that have been training with and stuff. And then eventually I got on the card, and that was around March. I remember my debut match on a proper show was against Kingy.
Yeah.
Up in Whangarei. And that was a good little match, man. It was just Caleb just laid it out for me. It was just very short. It was just he just beat me up, and then I had a big comeback, and then super kick for the finish.
Nice.
Well, not me super kicking him.
Him super kicking
on this former champ. Dust your hands off you. Yeah.
And like getting like how you said, getting the motivation to get on cards and get on shows while seeing all your guys, all your people that you've trained with getting all these regular shows. How did you go about developing your character? How did you establish yourself, and how did you what was the creating process of your character?
So for those of you, some people don't know, but when I first started, I had two characters when I first started. My first one, I was going to be Adam Daredevil,
right,
which stood for ADD. And I was going to tag with Liam. Liam and I were going to do a tag team. We were just going to be kind of like Paul London and Brian Kendrick.
Right.
Liam was just so flippy though. I could do some flips, but not as much as Liam. So we were going to do this. We were kind of talking about it. Leading up to that, as time got closer to where I was debuting, it was after I debuted at Armageddon. So I did Armageddon. I did ADD. I was just this, young. It's just a generic baby face that just got his ass whooped.
Yeah.
Around that time, Santino Morello was on Raw.
Yeah.
And I was like, this character is the greatest character ever. So then when I was young, I used to do this Russian accent.
Right.
No, it wasn't great, but I used to always just do this Russian accent at school
to
make my friends laugh. It was like a character I'd made up, like this computer technician guy.
Right.
It was this Russian guy that was a con man. So I would always, just at school, I go, you need to give me money and I'll fix your computer. Couldn't speak a lick of it Russian. Like I could just do the accent.
Yeah.
Wasn't even that great. But so then so I just one day at training I just decided I was like, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try and be Russian. And so I remember I do this match with Kurt Chaos, this training match, and I was just speaking the whole match. And I specifically said the character needed to be heel. I was like, it has to be a bad guy because I wanted to be annoying.
Right.
And so the whole match, I'm just doing this accent, getting my ass whooped. No, the blah blah blah. You cannot do this. You are my comrade.
Yeah.
Getting beaten up. And then I remember at the end of the match, everyone was like quiet. And then I remember Caleb going, "Well, it's annoying." And in my mind, I was like, "Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll be a great heel then." Like some pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So that was how I came up with that character. And then when they booked me on cards, they booked me as a baby face, which threw a complete spanner in the works.
Yeah.
And it sucked personally, but you just roll with the punches. You just
Yeah.
go with it.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, what can I do to make this character a babyface then? So then I decided I'll make it a Russian guy who's come over and he loves New Zealand.
Right.
So I was like, I was trying to do that, and the crowd hated me.
Oh
They
no.
just booed me. Yeah. It's very off-putting for like your first 10 matches, and you're supposed to be a babyface, and everyone's booing you.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh man.
That's rough.
Yeah. And then I remember one day they just booked me against a babyface. It was just face versus face.
Right.
And I was like, screw it, man. I'm just going to be heel. And I just went out there. I didn't even ask the bookers. I thought I was going to get told off. I just went out there, went full tit heel.
Yeah.
Got loads of heat. Like, people hated me.
Yeah.
Came backstage. I remember Caleb, Kingy was the booker at the time.
Yeah.
And he was standing in the corner, and I was so scared. I was like, oh, man, he's going to towel me off, man.
Yeah.
And I remember he just had a pen in his mouth, and he goes, I liked it.
Yeah.
We'll keep your heel, I think.
No.
I was like, yes, yes.
And what?
Yeah. So then from there on, I just kind of worked heel, and then I eventually joined up with Joseph Kincaid, and yeah, great.
Went from there.
Pretty much, man. Yeah.
And like, doing all the team actions and stuff, and then like breaking away and being a singles competitor, and getting like opportunity after opportunity. Who taught you, or like when you were beginning and getting more experience at about, who gave you the most advice, and who did you learn from as you were getting experience?
Yeah, I'd say because when we used to train, it used to be Alf, Kingy, Chuck, and Daddy Cool,
Mhm.
who used to wrestle back in the day. They used to take the trainings. They're all great teachers. But when I started in storyline, when I became Joseph Kincaid's apprentice,
Mhm.
like I became his like kind of lackey.
Mhm.
He would give me so much advice, and I'd watch his matches, and I'd say him. I learned the most from Joseph Kincaid,
Yeah.
who I think if it wasn't because he got a neck injury in 2009, which meant he had to stop.
Yeah.
If he hadn't got that neck injury, he'd probably be regarded as I'd say he'd be regarded as the best wrestler ever in New Zealand.
Right.
Like he was just beyond his time. Like you watch his wrestling now, and it still holds up. Like you know how like New Zealand went through that growth period where we're all kind of south.
Yeah.
It was almost because a lot of us are self-taught and stuff.
Yeah.
Joseph Kincaid was just leagues ahead of everyone. Like he was amazing, man, and
Right.
because he had that amateur background and stuff, so he just incorporated. It was very Kurt Angle. Like he was the Kurt Angle of New Zealand wrestling, pretty much.
Right.
So I'd watch that, and yeah, I would just try and pick his brain. I'd try and study his matches, and then yeah, I'd just try and emulate him too. Like
Mhm.
I try and copy as much as I can, like spots and stuff, which work great because if you're doing like the apprentice character for him, it's perfect because you just you're trying to copy your mentor.
Right.
So yeah, I'd say him. When he left, Dave O'Connor went overseas
Yeah.
and trained with the Dudleys.
Mhm.
So when Joseph left and stopped wrestling, that was around the time where Dave O'Connor came back from the States, and
Right.
I credit him to a lot of like he taught me a lot about psychology and stuff, and he's got such an amazing brain, Dave O'Connor. Like he just something about his brain with wrestling, like he just
Mm.
understands it. Yeah. So he was the other guy that I credited towards picking his brain and just taught me everything, man.
And like, getting all these experiences and getting the knowledge and getting the opportunity to pick brains and take the experience in, what when it led up to your first championship match, how did that come about, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, that was an interesting time, man. I credit that to Alf. Alf was the main pusher for me becoming champ.
Right.
If it wasn't for Alf, I don't think I would have ever gotten that belt.
Mm-hmm.
Because around that time I'd started working babyface, and I worked a very interesting style. It was comedy underdog, probably
Right.
the best way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was funny, but I also kind of didn't give up in that ring, and you'd always just fight back, and
Yeah.
you'd win by the skin of your teeth and stuff. And I
Mm-hmm.
think New Zealand hadn't really seen like at that time. Sorry, at that time they hadn't seen that type of character just quite yet. It was around 2012, 13. Yeah, they hadn't seen that character in a main event role. I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Right.
So then when I got shoved up that card, put in that main event role, it was just something new, I think, and people really latched on to me. Yeah, unfortunately, there was a lot of bad times around that time too.
Yeah.
Which I won't get into. But yeah, we all know who was around that time in New Zealand.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah. So I was competing with that a lot, where there was a lot of politicking and a lot of bullying and stuff. But if it wasn't for Alf was he was my guardian angel pretty much. He pushed and pushed and pushed.
Right.
And then eventually eventually that pushed through all the negativity, and lo and behold, we went ahead with it. And I remember getting that first main event shot because Vinny was champion at the time, and he was another guy too that saw something in me. Vinny and I hadn't really been that close up until then, and then Vinny found out he was working me, and he saw the potential in me, and he did everything he could in his power to make me look amazing.
Right.
And I credit him to that. Like he put me over so much, like really made me, he made that crowd believe I was going to become champ. Which we all knew at the time I wasn't, because it was just like a program for as like a filler almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it wasn't for that, that's what people really were like, oh, he could be champ. And then after that, it kind of lingered around, that feeling, and then that's where that, oh, maybe we should put the belt on him kind of came about, and then that's where Alf was really pushing it. So Vinny Dunn was a huge part of my career. He pushed and pushed and pushed. Kingy as well. He was another guy that saw potential in me. He was great. He gave me advice. He really helped me and stuff. Around that time he moved to Australia and stuff, so he wasn't around us personally, but you'd still flick him a message and stuff, and and then I think because that's how I became quite close with those guys. Right. They helped me so much. I probably would have never gotten that belt if it wasn't for those guys. So,
and getting that first win and having that and holding, your first championship, what was that feeling and experience like?
Oh man, I cried in the ring. The matches online, you can watch it online. It's because the first major title I won was the WPW heavyweight title.
Right.
And that was a title I never thought I was going to win, because at the time there was two promotions, and it was unheard of for a guy from another promotion to hold another person's belt.
Right.
Like everyone had kind of dreamed about it, but like, oh, it's an unachievable goal and stuff. But for a good year and a half, I was just working both shows. Like I kind of shattered that mold of like, hey, just because you're in one promotion, you don't have to work in the other.
Yeah.
And then guys like Rob, Charlie Roberts and JPE and Graham and stuff, they all also shattered that glass, because at the time you could only work one promotion and then occasionally guest star in another promotion.
Yeah.
And there was only two promotions at the time. And then around that time, that's where the Hughes Academy popped up.
Right. And
then so we had 3, and then Maniacs popped up 4. Now we've got about 11, which is fantastic. But going back to that, the championship win, so winning the WPW title for the first time, that was off Niwa. And I remember just crying in the ring, and I remember looking at it going, I'm in Auckland, I should have never held this belt.
Right.
So that was another guy I credit to, was Phil Woodgate. He was a guy that really invested in me in Niwa. Around that time where investing in the young guys wasn't a thing, it was still the old guys on top and stuff.
Yeah.
So Phil would invest in us heavily and stuff, and it was amazing, man. Like, he gave us the opportunity, and we kind of took it.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years later was the IPW one. That first win's still, to me, in my heart, it's my greatest moment, just personally, just because it felt so awesome to finally overcome all this politics and bullying and shit.
Right.
And to finally just achieve something that I wanted my dad to just see. That was
Right.
it. I just wanted my dad to see me win the belt.
Yeah.
Finally my dad gets to see me win it and stuff. And then, and you watch that match online, I'm bawling my eyes out for a good 2 minutes. Big wussy.
I think everybody does when they first win that championship. And like you
Yeah.
also, like mentioning Phil as well, like he does put a lot of time and effort into younger guys as well. He was one of the first people who gave me my opportunity to come down there.
That's great. Yeah.
And like,
He's so good with that. Yeah.
he really is. Like, and
Yeah.
and I wasn't expecting the opportunities that I got. I was just going down there and just working it, just to get the extra experience, more experience, different promotion, different experiences, different locker rooms, get to, like make new friends and stuff. And
100%.
Yeah. And one of the biggest opportunities that he gave me was to wrestle you.
That's right.
And you were IPW champion at that time. And
that's right. That match I remember ribbing you because
you ribbed me so much.
I was excited because I don't know if I told you the story, but leading into it months, Phil was like, "Oh, I'm going to put you against Kartik," and I was like, "Awesome, man! I've always wanted to wrestle Kartik."
Yeah.
Because around that time, that's when all the promotions popped up, and you'd see guys, and you'd be like, "Oh, I'd love to have a match with him. I'd love to have a match with him." And then I remember he goes, "Oh, I'm going to put you against Kartik." I was like, "Absolutely, love to. I've always wanted to wrestle that guy."
Yeah.
And I told Phil, I was like, "I'm going to rib him though. I'm not going to talk about the match one bit to him." So, and I go, "I'm going to go further too and just not talk to him all day."
Right.
Yeah. And then, and I remember saying hi to you. I was like, "How are you?" Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
and you're like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Oh, we'll think about it."
Yeah.
And I remember I was just ignoring you the whole day. Little poor bugger, eh? You just started, poor bugger, sitting in the corner.
Yeah, I was just
feeling
like,
you and anyone in the locker room.
Not really.
And I remember looking at him, I was like, "Oh, maybe I should go just talk to him." And I was like, "Nah." I was like, "This will be a great experience for him, a good rib."
Yeah, and like,
and then we go out there, and you did great, man. I just called the match to you, and then and then I remember as our music was playing, you're like, "So what's our finish?" And I was like, "Just tap out when I put the crossface in."
Yeah.
We go out there, and I remember I was hitting my finishes on you, and I was like, "Kick out," and like I was putting you over hard and stuff. And then I came back, and I was like, "You did great, man." And then I like doing that to new guys because I think, especially this generation, a lot of people, it's a lost art calling matches on the fly.
Right.
And I mean, you and I have done it a couple of times now, especially that you've been to the UK and stuff.
Yeah.
And it feels so great, and they're just going, "Oh, cool, we're just reading each other." Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
It feels
and then you
natural.
can pop yourself, and
You can.
So it's such a great skill to have. So I like doing that to especially new guys. I'll go, "Look, we're just gonna call it. Tell me some moves, and I'll call it."
Yeah.
Because then when they get back, because in their mind they build it up, they're like, "Oh, this is gonna be hard."
Yeah.
When they get back, they realize it's not that hard.
No.
And then I go to them, I was like, "Look, if you can do that, you can do a match plan from start to finish now.
Yeah.
Easy."
Yeah.
I've kind of opened that door of a thing for you. I've done that to numerous rookies now, lots of times.
Yeah.
Yours was the first one.
Yeah. I remember that day so clear, like so clear. Because like the only people that I knew that I met previously from there, and I met a couple of their new guys and stuff, and I knew Axel and Phil and Ian and all that, and I knew Rob like probably more than everybody else.
Yeah.
And then like Rob's just like helping you rib me at the same time.
Yeah. Right, yeah. That was another thing too, because I told Rob, I was like, "I'm going to do this to Kartik," because I went to Rob because I know Rob had wrestled you about 15 times with it.
Oh yeah, he's wrestled big.
And I go to Rob, I was like, "He'll be sweet with this." And Rob was like, "Yeah, easy."
Yeah.
I was like, "Cool, sweet. If Rob thinks you're sweet, you've got my vouch."
Yeah.
So fucking So then Rob was going along with it and stuff. I remember looking at Rob and going, because there was times I was almost going to crack because I felt bad. You were just in the corner by yourself, and I was like,
"Oh, I was panicking,
maybe I
man.
should go talk to him." Ease his nerves. And then I was like, "Nah, this will be good for him, man, because if he's this nervous, like if this is his most nervous time, and he realizes how easy it is, nothing's gonna fucking make him nervous ever again."
Oh man, like honestly, I was so nervous because I remember Ben doing the music for us, and he also jumped on the rib and continued to play your music.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't. I was like, "Oh damn, when do I go out?" And your music kept playing, And I remember you coming back, doing going backstage and going back in and going backstage and going back out. And I'm just like, oh no, when do I go out?
Yeah.
And I was
like, brilliant.
I was like, when do I go out?
About that.
And I just see Rob just standing, goes, why aren't you out yet? And I'm like, what? I don't know when to go. He goes, go out. He's waiting for you. And I'm like, oh,
brilliant.
His music's still playing. He goes, it doesn't matter. Just go out. They probably fucked up on music. Just go. And I was like, okay. And I went, and Ben's like, no, not now. And I'm like, oh, what am I meant to do?
I remember the first time I went out, I had my glasses on. I had these glasses on.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was like, oh, I better put them back. And then when I went back, I was like, I should do this like 4 more times.
I remember that. Yeah, that was fun. Like, honestly.
It's funny because then we go forward to, was it last year where we just had the tag and like, we're just in there fucking just.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're just in there. Oh, this is easy as.
Yeah,
you know,
like. Yeah. Oh, what do you want to do? Oh, we'll just call it out there.
Yeah, we're like, oh, no stress. Yeah.
Yeah. Just call it out there, mate. That was fun. And like, I remember that. And like, Phil was really good. And like, when, you know, Phil and Axel was really good trying to, like, when they rebranded Duppy Dub. And like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They worked their asses off to get Duppy Dub to where it was at that high peak at that time. And like, getting it, like, you know, like you said, you giving rookies all of these experiences of like not talking to them, ribbing them, and then making them really nervous. But then they're like, okay, if this is really nervous, then you could do this easily.
Yeah. I like a rib like that because it's not mean. It's just like I'm kind of messing with it a bit, but then it's all like afterwards. I'm like, hey, we're sweet, bro. You did great. Yeah. So I love stuff like that. But yeah, because I did that a couple of months ago in November to one of the River City guys, Tana. Right. What's his name? Tana. Can't remember. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Right.
Not one of the River City guys. Sorry. One of the Napier boys.
Oh yeah.
Wrestles a lot for CPW.
Mm-hmm.
I wrestled him in a singles match, but I also had a fatal four-way that night, and our flight didn't get in until 6:15. So we're rocking up. I'm just like, oh, this is sweet, man. I was like, we'll just talk about the four-way when we get in. Like, we'll just run it. Because I had the whole match in my head. I was like, I'll just tell everyone this is what we're doing. It'll be sweet. So we rock up, and this poor fella, I think it's his second match ever. And he comes up and he's like, oh, so what are we doing? And I was like, mate, I got a four-way to plan. I kept going to him. I was like, I got a four-way to plan. As our music was playing, I go, what's 3 moves you can do? He goes, suplex, spine buster, and DDT. I go, awesome. I go, just here for me to call them, and we'll be sweet, mate.
Yeah.
And we just go out there and and then afterwards, I told him, I was like, sweet. I was like, look how easy that was. Like, you're just listening for calls, and you're just going with it and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was funny because leading into that, Burns told Tunner that there might be a chance that I might not talk to him. Burns had warned him about that, Rip. There's probably a good chance he won't talk to you until 5 minutes before the match.
I mean, at least you talked to him for 5 minutes before the match.
Yeah.
With me, you're just like, oh, what do you do? What can't you do?
The music played, yeah. And I remember as the music was playing, I go, what moves you do? I remember asking that, but I already knew your move because I'd watched some of your matches. I was like, spear, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I was like, sweet.
Yeah. And I was like, you're putting me on the spot. This, and this.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, those WW shows are great, man. And I think that's what CPW are doing now. They're giving those younger guys a great opportunity, and like you see those guys coming up now, and they're learning so much from wrestling each week.
Yeah.
You know, that's the key to getting better, man. It's just wrestle every week, man. Just wrestle everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's like comedy clubs, man. Like you hear stuff like Dave Chappelle and stuff, who's one of the biggest comedians ever. And what he does is he'll just go to little open mic nights, and he's just like, I'm just working on material.
Yeah.
And he'll just do that for, and like that always instilled in me. I was like, man, it doesn't matter how big you think you are, We're not all big at all in this country, but some people think they are. But it doesn't matter how big you think you are. A show's a show, and that's experience. You should take that opportunity. That should be your chance to get opportunity.
Exactly.
To learn. And
like,
especially when you're carrying people too. Some people, they use that term carrying people. Maybe you're working with a guy that's not as experienced.
yeah,
I reckon that's the time where you learn the most.
right.
Because you learn how to ring general. You learn how to control the match, and that match really reflects on you how well that match comes out.
Right.
Because you're the guy in charge. You're leading this guy that's had 3 or 4 matches through a full match. That reflects on how you and your generalship, and that only gets better with the more matches and the more times you do it.
Right.
So you just keep doing it and stuff.
And like after winning multiple championships and like getting the opportunity and being one of those guys that helps the newer guys now, and getting the opportunity to work with newer guys and passing on your knowledge to them, what was that, what's that experience like? What's that transition like?
That's awesome. That's a good question, man. I actually really enjoy that transition. It was something I never thought would happen. Like, it's something I kind of, when you're young, you're like, I'm never gonna be one of those old guys and stuff.
Right.
And I think the key is to remember your roots as well. Don't let it get to your head and stuff. I try my best to just treat people like humans and stuff. We're all just people.
Yeah.
Doing this thing. And I've made a lot of friends here, and to me, I love it when people ask me for advice and stuff, because I love talking about wrestling. I love talking about the psychology of it and the mindset of it and stuff.
Right.
And to me, like, that's a chance to just go on a big rant. I'll be like, oh, cool, like a positive rant. Cool, I think this, blah blah blah. Maybe you should do this next time. And then so like that experience it's only really clicked into me, I'd say, the last couple of years, that like, because to me this like the 14 years I've been wrestling have gone so quick.
Right.
I mean, guys like Graham who have been wrestling 20 years, they all say the same thing.
Yeah,
like,
they all do.
It just goes so quick. It all blurs into one.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, oh, I've been wrestling for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, what are you? You started in 13, right?
Yeah, 2013. So it's been like 8
So you're
years.
almost 10 years.
Yeah,
like,
almost 10 years in.
It's
just
like, I remember yesterday when you started. Like, it still
I know,
feels
right?
like
It feels like yesterday.
Yeah. So like being in that role is great and stuff. That's why I quite enjoy winning a title to then drop it to someone.
Right.
Because then to me that's like a big moment for them. They beat they beat a guy that's been around for ages and stuff, and they win their first bout, whatever, in front of that crowd and stuff.
Yeah.
That's why I always opt to just like, hey, can you, that's why I ask promotions, oh, can you put the title on me? And then a couple of months later, can I drop it to so-and-so? Because I love that feeling for a guy to win the title for the, even if it's their first time, that's such a great experience. Because I've been there. I know what it's like to win your first bout and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always try and do that. Like, because I have 26 bouts now and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's always been, can I get it? And then drop it to so-and-so a couple of months later. Yeah. And really kind of make that moment special for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I love that. I love that feeling of you getting pinned 1, 2, 3, and you're like, cool. He's experiencing what I experienced the first time.
Yeah.
And it like makes your heart warm. You're like, cool, awesome, man. I'm happy for him, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, that's why I wish because I'm quite close with Sam too. Right? Sam's Spartan.
Yeah.
He's a cool bugger.
Yeah, he is.
I'd always fantasize about dropping being Hugh's champion and him winning it off me, because I remember that first time he won it. It was such a cool moment for him and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was great. Like it was fantastic, him beating Ruben and stuff. And I look back and like the selfish side of me was like, I wish I could have given Sam that. I wish I could have been the guy.
Yeah.
But it was great because the month before he beat me to go for that belt. So in a way, I kind of like I had that moment. I was like, oh cool, I've given him a main event win. And yeah. It's great seeing those guys like win it for the. I remember Rob did the same thing for you when you became Hughes champ for the first time.
Yeah, he wouldn't tell me. He told me in the ring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think Ruben did the same thing with Sam. The show they didn't tell him.
Yeah, we didn't tell
him.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. He was like, what? Like the penny dropped. He's like, oh man, yeah. But yeah, I love that experience of like winning a bout and then having a younger guy experience that first time. Because then to me it creates this like kind of connection. It's like, oh, you've that will forever, man. You know, you look back at like you always look back at the first time you won a bout and you remember who you beat.
Yeah.
And you always kind of have a close connection with them. You're like, oh, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
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 I remember because the first guy I beat was Liam.
Yeah.
Liam Fury, and
Mhm.
you know, him and I have always been best friends. So
Yeah.
it was just a cool moment for me. I remember crying, and he goes, "Don't cry, you wuss!" Like as I was pinning him, and I was like, "Shut up."
So let me have my moment.
Yeah, and then I remember him going, I'm gonna kick your ass if you don't stop crying," and I'm like, "Wow."
Yeah, it sounds like something he would say.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
And like, you know, when you started and there was only 2 promotions and you broke that bridge and created that bridge, what's it like and seeing this transition of now there's another one, here's this other one, here's this other one?
Yeah, I love it, man. I mean, personally, it just gives me a chance to work every weekend, which I
Right.
love.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love too, what Graham's doing the Friday shows now.
Yeah.
So now we can work twice a week. It's fantastic. It's the best thing ever. It's just such an amazing feeling to see that, like, especially when you started, because there was 3 promotions when we started. There was KPW and WW and IPW. But I don't know the insides and out, but I know there was beef between all 3, which you probably look back at it and you're like, why?
Yeah. You're like,
you're like, yeah. So yeah, it's great to see that just gone now. Everyone's just like, oh, it doesn't matter what promotion you are.
yeah.
And then to see like, you know, all these guys getting belts now, like to me, it's not so much about winning the belt. It's more so that the guys are like, oh, they're trusting people now from all over the country. You don't have to be a part of the company for them to like trust you and like be like, oh, cool, here's a championship.
Yeah.
It's such a cool little thing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And
I think like I can't take all the credit for that. Like I said, like guys like Rob, Graham, Stacey, even you younger guys, like you guys working dub and stuff, you know, learning, that breaks them, like that broke that barrier more and more and more of like, hey, you can just work anywhere and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys like that, Ben Munner as well, Rough Guts, those Scarlett, those people, like they deserve as much credit as me to like for like opening that door for everyone and stuff.
Yeah. And like they really worked with the younger guys to see, okay. And then they went back amazing. And there's like, oh, you need to book this guy or this guy or this guy from up here or down there. And it's like we went there and I wrestled him, and you know, he seems to be good. He, you know, and it opens up those doors as well. Because I remember when I started and stuff, the first outside promotion opportunity that I got was from Stacey Stewart and for Maniacs, which JPE gave me my first opportunity. It was a fatal 5-way, and I remember going to training that day, and it was a Saturday, and I walk in and Graham and Tanya was like, oh, do you got plans later on this afternoon? I'm like, no. She goes, okay, because Graham's working Maniacs tonight and they need an extra person for this fatal 5-way.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I'm like, I would love the opportunity. And they're like,
that must be bloody
and
heart racing.
Yeah. I was just like, oh shit. I'm like, okay. And like that was like my first taste of an outside promotion environment. And it was cool because I had Zach there, I had Graham there, I had Tanya there, and I had Rob there. And then that's when I met Rough Guts for the first time.
Awesome. Yeah.
And you know, and then like we did this fatal 5-way, and I ended up kicking Tank in the balls by accident. And we did this fatal 5-way, and it was cool and it was fun. And then you know, Maniacs gave me more opportunities to come back, and then I believe Rough Guts was part of was the booker at this point in time for them. And this is when like Scarlett was coming up and Chad Howard was coming up, and it gave me the opportunity to wrestle Chad Howard and on another promotion, and also get to wrestle Scarlett and a tag team and stuff, and get to wrestle Shadow Ninja and Charlie Roberts as well. and
They're
get
very different people.
like all these
Shadow
different
Ninja and Charlie Roberts.
very different people.
Never
And
found
like
out who that guy is. He's just
no,
he just
never
shows
did.
up in the
He just
mask and buggers off.
he shows up randomly whenever he wants to, really. And like
Yeah, I know what you mean, man. Like getting
yeah.
that chance to work those guys and creating those connections.
Mm,
That's what it's about, man. Like, and that's what I like about Graham and Maniacs and CPW and Heathens. They give those
yeah,
chance to those younger guys, and they'll, and they then gets the chance to everyone around to see what these guys have and stuff.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've heard of a kid Ryan Zero who trains at River City.
I think so.
Yeah, he like I remember he was coming up with a couple of those rookies, and I remember, when you just see a rookie and you're like, oh, we'll just wait till he gets the ring because
Yeah,
he might not be that great.
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember watching his first match and it was amazing, and I was like, wow, this kid's gonna be so good. Like,
Right.
and then a couple of shows later, like it was his fourth match ever I wrestled him, and he was like money, man, and I was
Yeah.
like, holy crap! Like,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for that opportunity that Jay gave this kid,
Yeah.
I would have never known about this guy.
Yeah.
So now, whenever people ask me, "Oh, who's an up and comer?" I'm like, Ryan Zero, man. I was like, look at that kid,
Yeah.
just fire,
Because I'm currently trying to fill my weekends and my dates for the rest of the year, and I've asked Jay what his dates are, and I keep asking him who are the newer guys down there, because
Yeah.
I remember like Graham has given me opportunities of debuting people on shows, and
Yeah.
and I was so scared.
Quite a big task, eh?
It is. It really
Like,
is.
yeah.
Because
People don't understand that. That's like the
Yeah.
promoter going, "I trust you with this
Yeah.
guy that
Yeah.
knows nothing."
Yeah, and it's
Like,
on
"Sweet, all
you
right."
if it goes
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
It's on you. Whether this match is good, bad, terrible, the worst thing you've ever
Yeah.
seen, it's on you. It's not the new guy's fault.
With all the
it's your
pressure,
fault.
yeah. And you're like, shit, all right.
Yeah. And like sometimes you have the luxury of getting a 6-week prep if it's one of your if it's part of your training or where you train. Sometimes you don't have that luxury. If you're going to another promotion and you're like, you don't have a 6-week prep.
Yeah.
You may start a conversation and introduce each other and be like, cool, what can you do?
Sometimes you just meet them on that day, right? You're
that
like,
day,
the first time I've met you, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're
What
just
can
like,
you do?
yeah. And it's like, okay, it's on me if it goes bad. And then like Graham gave me the opportunity to debut Shepherd on shows. And luckily we got to have a 6-week prep time.
Nice.
And me trying to come up with a match and trying to like put the match and stuff together, I always like it always brings back memories of when you ribbed me, and like always brought back memories of when Rob worked me for a whole entire year to get me ready. So he wanted to wrestle me and got me ready to be like, okay, cool. If you can hang with Charlie Roberts, you can hang with anyone, because like
exactly.
He's like he's one of the best.
Yeah,
and
100%, Rob. Yeah,
and
Rob's in my what are the 4 heads? Mount Rushmore of New Zealand wrestling.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Plus, like, he's one of my best friends, and I got all the time in the world for him.
Yeah, exactly. And like I just
like biasness there.
Yeah, it is, and it really is, because like he's my older brother, and like he's helped me out not just in the ring, at training, and
in life and stuff,
and life and personal stuff. He's
great. He's done the same for me too.
Yeah, he's kept me off
drugs.
Yeah, basically, and he's kept me off like making wrong decisions, and when I do make mistakes and wrong decisions, he sits me down and gives me the older brother talk about it, and like he always makes sure that everyone's okay.
Yeah,
no matter who it is, he's always there for everybody. He always tries to make the time
great,
for everybody, and like the knowledge that he has as well is just amazing. And like like I couldn't imagine the amount of pressure that yourself and everybody else that had to go through when you guys have to work these younger guys or debut these younger guys, and getting your first opportunity to do that. What was that experience like?
Yeah, when was it? It was funny because back in IPW times, I don't think they had that concept of newer guys shouldn't work newer guys. They'd just
Right.
here. So I remember working Aaron A-class, Aaron Hinade in like his
Oh.
first couple of matches. And at the time, I probably knew as much as him, man. Like, I probably had like a couple more months training than that. I mean, what's that?
Yeah.
So Aaron and I, which is great because he's another guy that I'm very close with, and we look back now. I mean, look what he's accomplished. But like you almost like at the time you're like, oh, we're almost just kind of both flailing around in the mud, like. But I would say 2011. Yeah, it was around 2011, 12 where I started getting comfortable with wrestling newer guys, and
Right.
I remember that openly, like you'd hear it occasionally, like a booker would go, "Yeah, put him with James. James will hold him," and you're like, "Wow, that's what the booker thinks of me." Cool.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first time Alf said that, he put me as a rookie, and I just overheard him go, "Yeah, put him with James. James will lead him through a match."
Yeah.
I was like, "Whoa, Alf thinks that I can do that now."
Yeah.
So yeah, and then years ahead. Now where are we now? We're 2021.
Yeah.
Just 14 years ahead.
Yeah.
I don't want it to sound bad, but a lot of people now I wrestle now. It might just be my style because I'm quite a control freak. But everyone I wrestle now, I ring junior a lot. Like it's just what I do. It's just like something I feel I do and stuff. It just suits my style.
Right.
So I feel a lot of time when I get in that ring, like almost every show now, I get that sense of like I'm wrestling a new guy, and I've got to carry them and stuff. There's exceptions, obviously, like when you wrestle like yourself or Rob, you're just like, easy night, like you're like cool,
easy night at the office.
You're like easy, I mean, last time I wrestled Rob, we just showed up, didn't even talk about the match, and then I remember lying down, and then we're in the match, calling the same spots to each other at the same time, and like trying not to laugh. I was like,
yeah.
And you're like, great. I was like, we know what we're doing. Yeah. So a lot of the people I wrestle now, like I feel like, and that's not a dig on anyone. That's just I feel like just the level of experience and stuff.
Right.
I'm sure Rob and Graham probably feel the same because remember everyone they're wrestling has like paled in comparison to the years they're wrestling. So
right.
They're probably just getting it their way or their the way they like it. Personally, I'm a bit of a control freak when I play in matches. So. But it's different when you wrestle a guy that's had barely any matches. I don't get nervous anymore. I'm like, sweet. I feel like I could wrestle a broomstick out there and get it over.
Yeah.
Like it's just like you learn the art of it. And
you
keep it very simple and just tell a simple story, and then I think that's the big mistake a lot of people do when they wrestle new guys. They go for false finishes, and then you kick out. You almost got him. You got to tell it's like, no, they're not at that level, man. Your goal is just to get them through a match.
Yeah.
You're not aiming for a 5-star classic.
No.
You're not aiming for match of the night. You're just trying to get them through a match.
Yeah.
They're not at that level yet where they need to be fucking. I'm not allowed to swear. They're not at that level where they've got. They're aiming for the 5-star match. They're just at that level where they want to get through a match so they can learn. Just do that for a couple of years.
And
then. Unless you're a guy like Liam who immediately comes out and has like 10 amazing matches on his debut. Yeah. You're like, oh well.
All right then.
Off you go then.
Yeah. Every goal that you set out for yourself over the years, do you think you've hit them?
Yeah, I'd say. There's always new goals and stuff. Like you've got goals that are like that are more orientated towards like success, and then you've just got funny goals like I'd love to do a dumpster match.
Right.
Like that's a goal of mine now is to do a dumpster match.
Yeah.
Which I'm gonna make happen one day.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
You've got other goals like to me there's a couple of championships I haven't won. I'd love to just tick them off, like the Hughes Academy main belt. The Heathens Combat, you just love to tick them off and just be like, cool, I've done it once. And then you also get that experience of the same goal of making a guy, like a young guy beating you for it, he becomes champ. So that those two goals kind of go together, I think. I feel like they link together, like, you win a bout and then make someone look great when they beat you a couple of months later for it. As for I mean, I think back at my goals and stuff, they weren't too crazy. I had aspirations of going overseas and stuff quite early.
Right.
But I had a bad experience when I did do that, which I won't get into. As a game, it's just the same people from 2014 and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So, and then that's when I decided I just want to make New Zealand like a great place, and it's something you can't do by yourself. You need the support of everyone, which thankfully we have. Like everyone's done great.
Yeah.
It's not a one-man goal. You can't just do it yourself. Like it's impossible.
Hmm.
And most of the time, I feel like I don't really contribute that much anyway, to be honest, because I see guys like starting promotions and putting their money into like things and stuff, and I'm like, oh man, like here I am just coming out here and doing flare flops and
Flare flops.
yeah.
And like, what would if we have to get like anybody up and coming now and people, because I know like everybody looks up to the guys who've been around for a long period of time, and who's been doing this for a long period of time. Do you have any advice for everybody who's up and coming, and even for people who are still in the game?
100%, man. Get the older guys to watch your matches and give you advice.
Right.
Ruben said a great thing at our last show. He told the younger guys, and I agree with it. When older guys like myself or yourself or Graham or Rob watch shows and stuff, they're making notes in their heads about matches, but it's not like, especially like nice guys like Rob and stuff. They're not going to come up and be like, "You did this wrong." Those younger guys need to come up to the older guys and ask, "Hey, did you watch my match? Do you have any advice?"
Right.
Because then that's when they'll be like, "Yeah, sure, I've got this. I think you should do this too, blah 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 blah." Because I personally, I feel a bit rude to go up to someone and be like, "Hey, you did this wrong." Now, I might do that if it's something fucking really bad. I might go up and be like, "Don't ever do that again." Like, something that really kills their character or something.
Yeah.
But if it's just little things, I'm gonna take note of it in my head. I might say it to the person who's like, "Oh, we should do this." Like Rob and I will be sitting there going, "Oh, maybe they should do that next." But it's up to them to go up and ask, "Hey, did you watch my match? You got any advice?" And the other thing too is sending your matches to older guys.
Right.
Can you watch my match? Because we live in this day and age now where bloody everything's filmed. It's really easy to send a match and like, "Can you give me some advice?"
Yeah.
So I'd say that's a big advice. Another big advice is just wrestle everywhere and as often as you can. Really, really like just get used to being in that ring, man. Like you've got to really it's almost like you've got to grow a sixth sense in there.
Yeah.
And like that doesn't just come, like that comes over time with practice and practice and practice and practice. So yeah, that's what I say to those younger guys. Just wrestle everywhere, And if you think you're above a promotion, I got news for you. You're not.
You're not.
No one's above any promotion, mate.
No.
Yeah. So I think that's just a great thing. Like, like wrestle everywhere and anywhere. Obviously don't go bankrupt, don't
it? Yeah. Be smart about it.
Life comes first, job comes first. Be smart about it. But if you got a free weekend and you're at a show, you ask Graham, "Oh, is there a spot for me?"
Yeah.
The worst he's gonna say is no.
No. Yeah. That's the worst.
Sorry, no.
But
hear. Then Graham's gonna be like, "Oh, he's asking. He might be interested later on."
Yeah.
That's the worst case. That's the worst thing that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people do that. It's like, "Hey, I've been keen to wrestle. Is there any spot for me this week?" Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Who knows? They might have a 3 minutes match to fill.
Yeah, why not?
It's 3 minutes out of that ring. That's 3 minutes of experience that you wouldn't have got.
Yeah, exactly.
You hadn't asked.
Yeah.
So that's my big advice: is wrestle as often as you can. Ask the older guys like Graham, Guts, Rob, myself, you, like just all those guys that have been around and have a great mind for it and stuff. Because that's where you learn the most. Where you look back and you go, of course.
Right.
Guys like Ben Munna. Yeah. All those guys are fantastic to pick their brains.
What's next for James Shaw? What projects you got coming up? What what's happening with you?
I don't know. I'm just sticking around with this church and state thing. I think
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It'll probably be a good 3 years. I think we'll just stick together.
Right.
I definitely want to have a match with my dad.
Now that
yeah,
I'll,
where
I'll see.
that storyline where that suits in, I've just got to make sure that all makes sense.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Oh yeah.
Because that is wrestling. You know, your manager's always going to turn in your own point.
Yeah, at one point.
yeah. Like I said, tucking off those last championships that like I've always wanted to win, maybe. But doing it at the right time and the right meaning. What else? Yeah, basically just seeing New Zealand grow, continue to grow. I'd love promotions to run a Sunday show. That's a prime spot, which I think is completely missed.
Right.
Don't do it nighttime. You do it in the Arvo.
Yeah.
So maybe a start time of 3 or 4.
Yeah.
You know, gives everyone enough time gives families enough time to go home and still make dinner and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be some of my goals. See a promotion run a Sunday show. Just keep watching everything grow and grow and grow. You've got Graham and Warrior now running Friday shows, which is fantastic. You know, people get to wrestle twice a week now.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was unheard of, bro.
Yeah.
Like
when you started,
when you and I started, unheard of.
Yeah.
You're lucky to wrestle once a month.
Yeah, you'll be be lucky if that.
Now it's sport for choice. The show's on the exact same night. Like,
exactly.
In upcoming, we got 3 shows on this. I mean, a couple of months ago, we had a show that had 4 shows on one night.
Yeah.
Where do I go? Oh,
yeah. And it's like it's cool to see it come this far.
Yeah,
but it's going to be even better to see it how far it can go.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, and it's just going to keep growing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, like, for those people that say, "Oh, it's still the same that it was," because some people say that.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same. I
don't think they know what they're looking at.
Yeah. Because like when
I've
you
been
started,
I've been from 06 to like now.
Yeah,
it is such a different, and in a good way too. Like it's so different.
Yeah,
all these different promotions. Like I remember we weren't allowed to wrestle in other Auckland promotions.
I remember that.
I thought that was the stupidest rule ever. The people were like, like there was worries that like, we just want this promotion to be the place you see James Shaw. Or we want this promotion to be the place you see Kartik, or like, and some people were very open to the idea of not that being a thing.
Yeah.
But there was just a select few that were like, nah. And then I remember when that ended, it was amazing. It was like, cool.
Yeah.
I don't have to travel now, and I've just had 3 more promotions now that are now available to me in close proximity.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Like, yeah.
And then like outside of New Zealand and stuff, if you want to be a full-time wrestler, you're gonna be working different promotions. It's normal.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And like you go
crazy,
overseas, and it's like, cool, I could, and you just you make up your own schedule, and it's really, really exciting because you'll be like, cool, I could go here, then I could go here, then I could go here, and then you just go and introduce yourself to promotions and stuff and promoters and get to know people, and then just build this network, and it's amazing.
It's great. Yeah, it's the way to do it, eh?
Yeah.
It's the way to do it, man. You got to really like kind of sell yourself. Like, hey, I'm this guy, I can do this. Would you be keen? And like I said, the worst case they just goes, nah.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Okay. On to the next one.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Do you have anything else that you would like to say to anyone who's going to watch this episode? I know the Spartan's going to watch this because he's a mark.
Spartan. Boring. No, that's a fun joke. What anything to say, man? Don't. This is to anyone that's on the cards. Any card. Don't think that you're above the promotion. Don't think that you're above the card. Don't think that you're the center of the attention for the, know your role on the card. And I think if we all think like that, we can put on some amazing shows, Yeah. And stick to your damn time. Wrestle. I don't think people understand how stressful it is for a booker. Stick to your damn time.
Yeah, stick to the times, guys.
I don't care if you can go an extra 5 minutes and get a 5-star match. I would rather you I'd rather you just go 8 minutes and get
Yeah.
a 3-star match.
Yeah.
Stick to your damn time. Yeah. But yeah, just keep growing, keep learning. Hit me up. I feel like I'm a very open book when it comes to talking to people.
He is.
You know, send me matches. I'm happy to watch. I know a couple of people asked lately. I just need to find the time to do it.
Yeah.
More than happy. But yeah. And thank you for having me, man.
No worries, man. Thank you for joining.
That was about an hour, was it? That was a good
yeah.
quick time. That was quick.
Time flies.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, James Shaw, for joining us on this episode of Behind the Wrestler, and I'll catch everybody on the next one.